Okay, we will welcome you and call to order our regular meeting of the West Valley City Council. It is September 6th, 2022, and it is 6:30 p.m. We are meeting in the council chambers of West Valley City Hall. All members of the council are present, and we are joined on the dais with Mr. Wayne Pyle, our city manager, and Nicole Kamick, our city recorder. Our opening ceremony will be presented by Councilman Whetstone.
Would everyone please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to the minutes of August 23rd, 2022. I'll turn it to the council for discussion or a motion.
I move for approval of those minutes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And those pass. We will now have our public comment period. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes. Any person wishing to speak shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. Upon recognition by the mayor, you will approach the microphone. If you did not sign up with your name and address on the sheet, please give us your name and address at that time. You are not addressing, no person addressing the city council during the comment period shall be allowed to comment more than once during the comment period. And speakers should direct their comments to the mayor. The council and staff will have time within the 30 minutes to respond if they would like. So we have our sign up sheet and we will take our first speaker. Did everybody make sure they knew? There we go. Thank you.
Right, hello, yes, my name is Richard Nowak. I'm a resident of Chesterfield, Utah. So I'm here today to comment on water usage. So it's become very critical. On average, we have about 100 degree days, about 8 a year is average. We're going to look at about 32. That's like 400%. The Great Salt Lake is shrinking. Lake Mead is also shrinking, so water is becoming extremely critical. So my purpose to be here is every few years we have ordinance come through, and I've received an ordinance violation for landscaping. So I've noticed it's a good thing, you know, like libraries and some city offices are actually pulling out their grass and putting in things like cactus and water resistant type plants. But I think at some point, some of these things are not going far enough. I've been using like Zeroscape because I actually have animals on the property. In Chesterfield, it's a lot of agriculture zoning. So some neighbors, maybe a third of them might have grass, but a lot of the properties will have cattle, will have horses, goats. We particularly have birds. And I have sodded the yard before, but usually it takes them a couple of years. They destroy it and it has to be redone. So I am complying. I did put in some sod and we put in a few plants, but that still requires a certain amount of water. I did talk with Lane Morris about trying to be a little more lenient on this. And Lane said they had approached city council before about trying to change some of the percentages of landscape or even go into an absolute zero. I usually will purchase like playground wood chips. They're the most expensive you can get at Diamond Tree. They look very pretty. And like I say, they, you know, even as Zeroscape will need maintenance because leaves will fall from trees or potentially weeds can grow through them. But I still think, you know, looking at water conservation should go a little bit further than it is. So as you know, according to city ordinance, I know a lot of HOAs, they're starting to let their residents actually tear out grass because for years they insisted that you have to water it, you have to mow it. And it really is, water is becoming a very important issue to take thought of. So also, I did a presentation to the church at one time about the town of Chesterfield. It was created in the 1930s and it was actually called Skid Row way back in the day because a lot of poor people moved in. And then they moved a bunch of mining shacks, I think from Bingham Mine in there, and that's where the neighborhood started growing. There used to be a railroad back in the 20s and 30s would go through there. So some of the properties are unique shape because of the old railroad. But, you know, compared to other neighborhoods that have curb and gutter, I think, you know, there may be some special considerations of the types of ordinances that seem to be the same in a residential neighborhood as opposed to what we have in Chesterfield, which more than half the people there have some type of animals or cattle. So this is my concern. I'd say I'm in the process of trying to comply or am complying with the current ordinance violation. One of them actually is a fence that was put up in the 1970s. So, and I've seen this happen to one of other of my neighbors is the ordinance, like the transparency of a fence has to be 50% and 4 feet high. So my neighbors have daughter vines. They've been there since the 70s. So that actually was discussed at some point and resolved. So I'm going through the same thing again. So I think, I don't know if there's some policies or some of these ordinance people should be required to do a little more research on the age of properties and maybe look back at pictures and photographs of what the structure had back when it was built. So that's another thing I'll be arguing with. So, but thank you for your time. Like I say, please consider, you know, this water issue is going to get worse. I don't believe it's going to get better for any time soon. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker 2.
Mayor Lang, I am Andrew Gremlich and I am a studious learner of life. I am grateful for anything that I can learn. For example, I have learned much when it comes to owning a home. There is a lot that goes into making a home feel like a place where I belong to. My current home needed fixing up for it to feel more welcoming. My wife and I analyzed our budget and we incurred thousands of dollars of debt to replace moldy single pane windows and decaying organic shingle roof. After those projects, we considered what to do about landscaping. But we determined that landscaping should come later because it doesn't make sense to work on during the summer and a drought. Since we would refrain from fixing the landscaping for now, we would limit the amount of lawn watering. Governor Cox had declared a state of emergency early this year to gain awareness of the severity of the drought. Governor Cox has even said it's going to be okay to have a yellow lawn this year. The Lieutenant Governor Henderson has also said that billboard phrase, yellow is the new green, and that we should only use water for what we need. The governor and the lieutenant governor aren't the only ones warning about the drought. Statistics on water.utah.gov state that due to less precipitation in recent years, water is getting sucked into the ground and there is a lower than average snowpack. Granger Hunter Improvement District recently declared a drought situation, and they're encouraging to lessen the amount of lawn watering. It seems to me that any attempt at water conservation is greatly appreciated from state leaders. With the severity of the drought in mind, to my dismay, a code enforcement courtesy notice was sent to my house stating all landscaping must be green and growing, weed-free, and properly maintained. I found out through KSL articles and talking with neighbors that I was not the only one that was sent one. Some people can't even afford to water their lawn or pay the code violation fine. Why enforce a green and growing lawn in a drought? Why force upstanding citizens to water when they don't want to water? What does green and growing even mean? It sounds like the yard needs to be 100% green. I did my research and there isn't very much to back up that requirement. The notice referenced 24/7/103, which states nothing about having a green lawn. So how can a green lawn be enforced when it isn't even part of the code? The only thing that I could find in city code that was related to how a lawn should be is 76303.3E that states that landscaping must be 50% live plant material. It didn't say anything about green. The lawn is in fact live plant material because it is in a dormant state due to the excessive heat this summer. As I water my lawn again, the lawn is coming back to life. So the instruction from the code enforcement officer should not really be enforceable. To create more confusion, my wife went to the code enforcement office and not our assigned officer gave her a 12 elements of great neighborhoods pamphlet. That pamphlet said that there must be no bare spots from lack of watering, but 30% must be live plant material. How can I save water but not have any bare spots in my yard by lack of watering and excessive heat? So I have some questions. Is it 100%, 50%, or 30% of the yard that needs to be green? Why continue to tell citizens to water more when we are in a drought? Why enforce watering of lawns at the end of summer when it would be hardest to maintain a green lawn? Why enforce something that is a non-safety issue? With all these questions and discrepancies, I cannot see reason or logic with penalizing brown lawns. So here's my perceived problem. Should my wife and I ignore the drought and waste water on a lawn that doesn't violate code to my knowledge, or risk getting fined by arbitrary and unbacked rules? Let me assure the city council and the mayor that I fully intend to comply with the code enforcement as reasonably possible. In fact, I have several plans in motion in order to try to comply. I would like to work with our code enforcement officer so that my wife and I don't get fined, but that officer has yet to call me back. I have learned that it is discouraging to live in West Valley City when threatened with a fine for not watering, when the code officers are enforcing something that seems irrelevant to city code, nor considerate of the citizens they are warning, and when the severity of the drought is ignored. Here's my call to action for the city council to consider. Revise explicitly codes 24/7/103, 24/8/106, and 7/6/203 to accommodate for brown lawns in a drought. Back off citizens that don't want to water their lawn and incentivize citizens to change to a zero-scape. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Speaker 3.
Thanks, Rack. Yeah, sorry. Dean Norman from Chesterfield over on Parkway. So a couple different issues going on here. When people are having parties, that's great. When they have live bands, I shouldn't have to fill it from 2 PM until 2 AM. When West Valley is being called time and time and time again, and it's taking them 4, 5, 6, 7 hours to get there. When they get there, they do nothing. I mean, we were getting to the point where we're getting littering. Me and my wife said it was like 12:30. I called Mr. Morris on his phone, so he got my message also. Gentleman comes over to grab his beer, which I'd already thrown back over the road, so I didn't have to pick it up in front of my house again. Turns, looks right at me and my wife, and starts urinating on the side of the road. We had a lady defecate right in front of the road. I mean, their house is feet away from the road, and it's disgusting. It's not something we should have to see, especially when we got to get up early and they're doing it till 2, 3 in the morning. It's getting ridiculous. It's leading to speeding, reckless driving. The cop showed up, lady backed out, hit a truck, and they focused more time on the truck that got hit after they left than anything else. So that's something that needs, in the dispatch time, when it's taken me 12 to 20 minutes to even get hold of a dispatch officer, that's not it's not a life-threatening, incident or anything. You don't have to dial 911, but it kind of adds more to the irritation by the time they answer the phone and they kind of get laughed at and played off that, oh, it's no big deal. That's getting a little bit ridiculous. If it's the point where it's taking that long, maybe you ought to think about getting dispatch. I know it's going to cost a lot of money, but back to West Valley. So when we call dispatch, we get West Valley Police Department. But, for them to sit there me and my wife watched them there, that scene for 45 minutes, groups of 10 people arguing which drunk car they're going to get into and drive off. Cars getting back out, getting back in their cars drunk. And not one car got pulled over. There was more folks on the car that got hit instead of even one of the officers going after the car that hit him. So to me, that was just a waste of 2 officers' time that we waited over 5 hours to get there. So something needs to be addressed about that. Seriously addressed about that. I mean, speeding is obviously a problem all over in West Valley and all over West Valley neighborhoods, but on Parkway Avenue, it is ridiculous. Because you got the church, the mosque down the mausoleum, whatever you want to call it, down the mosque down the road, that they have no regards to West Valley's laws of speed or anything. And then when you throw in the drunk parties till 2 in the morning, that makes it's going to end up in a catastrophe. So I appreciate you guys taking time to hear me. Hopefully y'all can get something figured out. We're going to keep calling. Mr. Morris made the mistake of giving me his personal number, so he'll get my messages at 12 in the morning. If I've got to be awake, I know it's not waking him up, but he's going to hear it. So it kind of brings to light how bad the situation is. Got other neighbors here that can probably attest that you can't sleep because you can feel, not just hear the music, but you can feel the music. So I don't know if you got to send someone through there and from ordinance or whatnot. The parking is out of control. We had to kick, 4 or 5 people out of our yard. The one parked and argued with us. I couldn't get my motorcycle on my driveway. That's not safe if we have to leave for an emergency or whatever. So I appreciate you guys taking time and hopefully you guys can resolve it, and we'll be here next week and give you our peace of mind. Thanks.
Thank you. Speakers 4.
That's me. First of all, I want to apologize to y'all and most of the people back here for my choice of verbiage last 2 weeks ago when I spoke to this gentleman, this person back here. But I'd like to reinforce what this gentleman here just brought up is the partying. As some of you know, which I was called a bigot for referring to this house in my neighborhood. And I guess I am a bigot. But I don't gear it towards any race. I gear it to the people that don't care, that move into our communities with a desire to tear them down or not go by the rules or whatever. But anyway, this house that we've talked a lot about, I've sent lots of pictures on. The night of August 27th, early morning of the 28th, there was a huge party till about 4 o'clock in the morning. Racing, drinking, partying, scaring people. Had a little old lady down the road that was petrified, didn't know what to do because she's a house away. Multiple people called the police and they were told that unless it's an emergency, we don't respond. So I guess we have to throw that saying that we use out the window. What is it? If you see something, say something. I said something when the trailer got stole out of my driveway that was hooked up to the back of my truck with the lawnmower in it. I was told an officer would come out. No officer showed up. I found out later that they don't respond to things like that. I had some people run a tree a number of years ago in my front yard. I had police all over my front yard and I'm a pretty sound sleeper. So my neighbor called me and said, "Don't panic, Mike, but the police are all over your front yard." So I went, I looked out the front door, I turned on the porch light so they would know that I was awake. Not one time did an officer come and knock on the door and say, this is what we're doing, this is what's happening. This is pre-Chief Jacobson. Anybody come and say a word to me. I talked later to the chief at the time. He says, well, we know who it is, but we just didn't see him, so we can't do anything about it. Well, I got to replace a section of vinyl fence they tore down while they were trying to get away. Another section of fence in the backyard where they kicked their way through to get out. They said, well, we know who they are, but we just didn't see them do it. Maybe that's some of the problems that we've got. You know, when we got the people that got the phone calls or called the police, says, well, we don't respond unless there's an emergency. Maybe there needs to be some at once, what do you call it, proactivity or whatever to get there before somebody's shot or stabbed or something, because we seem to have a few of those. You know, if we're understaffed, we just took a property tax increase. Maybe we could look at a couple of more officers for night patrol or whatever we need to do. But I'm glad to hear this gentleman here talk about the exact same problem that many of us have talked about for a long time. We need to be proactive on some of these parties and get in there. You know, the yard has at least been mowed after I went over and mowed their mow strip because the weeds got so big and they were blowing all over the cul-de-sac. I get tired of clean, you know, the weeds in my yard are coming from somebody else. You know, had a heated discussion with a young man. Was my neighbor talking about different things. And he's trying to tell me about how many people in the neighborhood don't like me. And I says, well, would it happen to be the people that don't like me have the crappy yards? And he said, yeah. I said, so the people with the nice yards like me? He said, yeah. And I said, you don't like me. But I'm not sure he was smart enough to get the drift. So, you know, I'm glad to see that Mr. Bunderson, we're working on parking. You know, I'm still opposed to giving them a deal if they pay on time. Maybe the first go around, you get a deal. Second, third, fourth, fifth, you don't get the deal anymore. Gosh, I'll hold this other one till next week on the turf equipment. But we just really kind of need some help out there. And I'm not the only one now complaining about some of the problems. Thanks.
Thank you. Speaker 5.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jim Visock. You would have thought we all got together and talked about this before. It's code enforcement, ordinance enforcement night, and laws. And once again, I'm going to talk about it too. But starting with how Mike ended, I'm glad to see it finally got to you guys about a progressive fine structure for the parking. I also agree after the first, maybe the second time, shame on me once, okay, twice. But when we get to the third time, there shouldn't be any discount, you know, but by then we know that they're not, you know, gonna comply. And the ticket should stay full. Code enforcement and parking, we've got selective enforcement. For years now, citizens have come before us, before you guys, and said, you know, they're hitting my house, they're hitting my house. Well, I've taken the time in the past and gone out when somebody will say, well, yes, I got a ticket or I got a fine. I've been courtesy notice, whatever you want to call them. My neighbors aren't getting them. And so it's easy to follow up on that stuff. When the yards aren't getting any better, you go out there, you make a note, jot it down. You don't see those yards getting any better. And selective enforcement, when I'm talking about, we go to the yards. Mr. Morris, a couple months ago, when we were talking about tightening down this drying thing, well, it's the officer's decision. It's a secondary fine for the green lawn. Well, now we've had a KSL news. We've got residents coming in talking about the brown lawns.
I won't point out anybody up there. Several of us have talked about having brown yards in there. If the yard is, especially with the drought and all the governor's warnings and if the yard is maintained where it's not 6 feet tall, mowed, kept up, but if it's yellow or brown, I think you guys need to do something and put it in. Don't let the code enforcement guys use it as a second. Make a decision on their own. It needs to be cut and dry. So us as the residents know, this is what the ordinance is. This is what we're doing now. Yes, we all would love to have green lawns. It takes a lot of work. It costs money to water it. People don't want to waste the water on it. There is other options. The Clean and Beautiful Committee this year, that was one of the emphasis I put out, was look for water-wise yard. So not zero-scaping, water-wise yard. And there's a lot of them. But when I would talk to the owners, they're spending anywhere from $10,000 to $25,000 to redo their yards. And a lot of people don't have that money. So I think code enforcement needs guidance on it. They don't have it from the top. I've talked about it for years. They need your guidance on how to enforce these water regulations. Selective enforcement on parking. One car parks the wrong way on the street, they get a ticket, but another one can be out there for 6 weeks. We've got our ordinances don't have a little asterisk in it. Well, if you had a problem, we're going to allow you extra time to take care of it. Doing the Citizens Academy is one thing I learned in the police department. The police officers are trained to enforce laws, not to interpret it. They enforce the laws as they're told. I think our code enforcement and our parking guys need to be doing the same thing. I brought this up before. Out at Fairborn Station, we had the National Night Out event. One lady, I was walking past her, and they were parked off to the side, and they were complaining that the city vehicles were blocking the handicap spots. Again, another event. There's no reason for that. They can pull those trucks down further. And this lady, she had 2 people helping her get in and out of the cars. I also have a handicap placard, but to have the handicap spots blocked again, I think that's something that we need to let our city employees to be a little cautious about that. And when there's limited spots. We are West Valley City. With that.
Okay, speaker 6.
Miles Wynn. My address is back there. I don't need to waste time with it. How y'all doing tonight? So just kind of wanted to mention a couple things that I was pretty excited to see. I think it was Councilman Christensen had mentioned things about the lack of awareness for public events. Last week, I came to my mailbox and found 2 notices for the block party and something else that had to do with awareness to abuse that children have to deal with and stuff. So I was excited to see. That's going to come out weird. I was excited to see the notices essentially in my mailbox to make me more aware of those types of events. That was something I thought, we'd spoken about in the past. And so I was excited to kind of see some of that. I did go to my neighborhood block party. I couldn't stay very long. I was hoping to see some of you there, but I only got to stay for a short period of time. Also want to mention that it's refreshing when the police are following through with things that they say they're going to do. I think I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the solar powered speed sensor they put on my block. I called in about putting it in a better location. It took some time. They moved it. It's in a better location now. So I really appreciate that. I got 5 out of 10 signatures for my speed study. So I'm working on that. Hopefully I'll have the other 5 due time. So we can get some progress made on that. Again, I'm still have some curiosity on how to get some of those policies changed as far as that 10-mile-an-hour threshold and things of that nature, just because I do think that's a little bit high. I went over to my buddy's house in Salt Lake the other day, so I have the new 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and stuff. So again, I think that's something that we should be participating in as well and lowering our speed limits in recreational areas. Another thing I wanted to mention is, I don't know if this is what exactly West Valley City or not property wise. I think it's right on the border of the property line, but Franklin Covey, and this is probably something I should just call DPW about anyway, but there is a tree essentially for going westbound down Parkway, and it comes out over the street to make it so you can't see the street light very well until you're pulling right up on it. So I think that's kind of dangerous. The other thing I want to mention about Franklin Covey too, and I think this kind of hits hard with everybody that was speaking here tonight, their sprinkler systems are just in the street, wasting a ton of water, tons of water coming off or runoff coming into the street. So I think those should be taken a look at as well. Otherwise, I just want to mention, I'm not super proud of what happened here a couple of weeks ago with myself and the gentleman behind me. That's something I don't like to participate in, but I felt the need to. Again, I just think it's part of the reason that some of that policing should be done by you as council members to preach inclusive behavior and just make sure that, regardless of us having our 5 minutes to speak up here, that what is said is appropriate. And again, I just think inclusivity is very important. So I want this to be a safe place for myself, for my community members. And that's all I really got tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that wished to speak that didn't have a chance to sign up? Okay, and do we have anybody online?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. We'll now close the public comment portion and turn it to the city manager. Did you have any comments tonight?
No, ma'am. Thanks.
And I'll turn it to the council, or is there anyone that had a comment? Yes.
Thank you. I just sat there and pick up a couple of things here, and I want to share with you guys. The first thing is Richard Norwalk, this speaker number one. The fence there is sorry. I moved in Chesterfield 2008, and I saw his fence was there. So I have been seeing his fence since 2008. And he shared with us tonight is a grandfather right there is the 1970 until today. So maybe I want to learn more to check on that one. I went over to check and I said, look fine to me. So I want learn more and Officer Grive, is that right? To take a look at that one. I appreciate that very much. The second thing is about the Norman and Chesterfield too. And I think I brought this up to Colin Jacob multiple times, and I'm a little bit frustrated, to be honest with you, about the party, about the band, live band play up to 10 o'clock, and people they calling, and it just so many minutes, no response. And it's a very simple thing. It's why we couldn't figure out how to solve this problem. I think that's why it makes it so difficult. It's very simple, because this city divided to 8 beats, okay? And each beat is one police officer control 1 beat, okay? And if we find something like this in Chesterfield, it's a problem in Chesterfield on a weekend, and that officer just go around in the afternoon, see they set up their chairs and table for their party, and just stop by and say, hey, hello, just say friendly, hello. Hey, I know you guys have party, just, have a good time, but don't go over to 10 o'clock. That's the basic things to say, and nice, friendly. I think easy. If you need more police officers to do this, we can support you guys to put more police officers to do this. The second thing is where community service officers, where has he been? And the third thing is we have my hometown things right there. We can send a note out to the my hometown people, and they monitor and very closely. They came to my house multiple times. They asked here and there. So you can give them information. They can pass it to us. So, okay, you can have a party, but you cannot do over 10 o'clock. Okay, no live band up to 10 o'clock. And I brought it up multiple times. Frustrated. You need more police officer, please. And we call in not only the Harmon, but multiple people in Chesterfield. And I brought it up about Mike Markham. I'm a minority too. I'm a minority. But when I came over here, I make sure I be a very productive citizen in this country. It's a fair game. Yeah, I don't want to give something a burden in society, something to city, to people here. And it's not fair for people. They are obeying the law. They obeying regulation here in this city, and someone else mess it up and didn't do anything about it. Talking about prevention, we have to do something. Someone get drunk and someone get hurt, and we don't want to see that. So I would love to see something, Colin Jacob, do something about this, and I appreciate it very much. If not, we're going to bring it back to the council for the future agendas item. And if you need more police officer, please let us know. The community service officer, where has I been? What are you doing? And we have ABs to do that. It's Chesterfield is not the first time we brought it up. It's multiple times. It's still there. Why does it make it so difficult to solve this problem? It's to me very easy, very easy. And that's all I say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to our public hearing regarding application Z10 2022. Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. This is a, excuse me, application for a zone change from A to R18. It's a 0.52 acre lot, has a house on there. And would divide that to allow for another lot to be on their property. The R18 zone would be slightly modified in this approval to allow for a 79-foot width instead of an 80-foot. And there isn't a development agreement that addresses some of the items on there, including curb and gutter and sidewalk improvements. There's some issues with the existing home that the applicant has agreed to address and other things along that line.
Okay, thank you. So for the people that are here for the first time, we go through this next part relatively quickly because we've had it a week, 2 weeks in advance and have studied it. So if it seems like we're just glossing over, we're not. Everybody's had the time to study it, visit it. So we will continue to move along then. I will open the public hearing regarding Z10 2022. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue?
Here, there is somebody online.
Okay, thank you.
John Baird, and he's the applicant of this
Okay.
application. John, you should be able to unmute your microphone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for your consideration on this. We felt like it was in line with the city goals as far as bringing higher value homes to the area, which we intend to do. We have agreed to the development agreement that the city has provided for us. And so I just appreciate you guys' consideration on this, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any questions? Okay. All right. No one else online? All right, we will now close the public hearing portion and I will turn it to the council. Our first action item is considering ordinance 22-33.
I move for approval of ordinance 22-33.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Kamick, sorry.
Councilman Fatiz Manu.
Aye.
Councilman Whitstone.
Yes.
Councilman Harmon.
Yes.
Councilman Hune.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt.
Yes.
And Mayor Ling.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We now have consideration of resolution 22-138, which is the development agreement for this property. Turn it to the council.
Motion to approve resolution 22-138. Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Kamick.
Councilman Nordfelt.
Yes.
Councilman Christensen.
Yes.
Councilman Hune.
Yes.
Councilman Harmon.
Yes.
Councilman Whitstone.
Yes.
Councilman Fatiz Manu.
Aye.
And Mayor Ling.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We now have application SMI 5 2022. Mr. Pyle.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, ma'am. This is a final plat approval at 2781 West, 4100 South. The zoning is R18 and it's entitled the Collins subdivision and is requesting that final plat approval. It would also, like the earlier project, be 2 lots on 0.63 acres. Proposed subdivision is on 4100 South, which would require a circle driveway for access on traffic. But again, as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, it's a project that we discussed in study meeting earlier, and this is a fairly normal one of those applications.
And the U-shaped or C driveway is to accommodate so people don't have to back out onto 41
Correct,
for
yes.
safety reasons. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll turn it to the council for comments or a motion.
Move for approval of application SMI-5-2022.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Kamic.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu.
Aye.
Councilman Whitstone,
Yes.
Councilman Harmon,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We will now consider application SMI 6-2022. Mr. Pyle.
Thank you, ma'am. This is another final plat approval. The address at this one is 3703 West Parkway Boulevard. And again, it is looking to create 2 lots from a subdivision. This is a commercial application in this particular instance. There's an existing building that would be located on lot 2, and then the lot 1 would be divided off of this and would comprise a lot of approximately 3.9 acres compared to 1.9 acres on the other lot, and allow for further development.
Okay, thank you. Turn it to the council for discussion or a motion on this.
I move for approval of application SMI 6-2022.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Kamic.
Councilman Nordfelt,
Yes.
Councilman Christensen,
Yes.
Councilman Hune,
Aye.
Councilman Harmon,
Yes.
Councilman Whitstone,
Yes.
Councilman Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
and Mayor Ling.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We have no other business except one motion. Pardon? Oh, well, after. So we will have one more meeting after this, the RDA. But we still need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we turn the time over to the RDA chairman.
Okay, call to order the special meeting for the Redevelopment Agency of West Valley City. It is 7:10. We have all members present. We've already had our opening ceremony. We have the minutes from our last meeting of August 23rd. Any comment or motions?
Move to approve and accept those minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we have one item of business today. It's resolution 2207 to authorize the agency to execute real estate purchase contract for 2 duplexes on Leedman Avenue. Is there any discussion or motion?
Move to approve resolution 22-07.
Second. Ms. Kamic?
Mr. Fitzie Umanu,
Aye.
Mr. Whitstone,
Yes.
Mr. Hune,
No.
Ms. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Nordfelt,
Yes.
and Chairman Harmon.
No.
Motion passes by majority.
Okay, one motion left.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.